Coogs House. All right. The lesson I learned in school was that human beings are fight or flight, not fight and flight. Someone should tell Houston's next opponent, the Auburn Tigers.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs and a bonus episode of Locked On Cougs Day. I'm your host, Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a Houston fan or just a hater that can't stop by, thank you for making us your first listen on a Saturday morning of all mornings, each and every day here, bringing you Houston Cougars information all the time. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say because you had no idea what to talk about in the terms of this kind of odd story today, tell us in the comments the first place you remember flying to on a plane, or if you haven't been on a plane, where you want to make that. Now, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We got more on that later, but this is a short bonus episode. We are just talking about this Auburn flight fiasco as Houston's opponent, as of the recording of this podcast, is still in Auburn, Alabama, kind of by their own doing. So I want to back up and tell you about how I first heard about this and kind of how things have unfolded. I got a text from an Auburn person. I'll leave it at that. At about 10 to 5, like 4:50, maybe it was 4:45, that was, oh my bleep, we're going to be bleeped, bleepity bleep, bleep, bleep. I can't believe this. And I was like, what? And I knew he was talking about Auburn and Houston, with a bunch of expletives involved. And so I quickly opened a couple social media apps, like what's going on with Auburn. I frankly was fearing someone got hurt at practice or something awful, right? And there's just a tweet from, I think it's actually an Alabama account. The Alabama Auburn thing is pretty strict, pretty intense rivalry, obviously. And it's one of those nameless, faceless accounts that I hate, but it insinuated there was a fight on the plane and that the Auburn plane got turned around. So I sent that tweet to my buddy at Auburn. I was like, hey, is this what you're talking about? He said, absolutely. And then I sent it to another buddy who is an Auburn alum. I said, hey, have you heard about this? And he said, yes, and it's bad. I sent it to a third. The guy didn't respond for a while. About 20 minutes later, goes, I don't want to talk about that. I can't believe that happened. Very quickly, people that know people, I don't know anyone at Auburn in the athletic department, but people that know people in the athletic department were much like, yeah, this is bad. And I started fishing and digging, and some people played with me more on that than others. But over the course of the next couple hours, it came out like this is something that really happened. So going to the facts of stories, I think, is important to kind of cut through the rumors, but factually being reported by like local news and ESPN and big news outlets that vet their sources, and also because it's multiple sources, then you can check things off. We do know that less than an hour into the flight from Alabama to Houston, the Auburn men's basketball team had to turn around. The pilot attempted an emergency landing in Montgomery. To do that, you have to call in to the, and say like, hey, we need an emergency land, and you typically have to have a reason. And while they can't, no one is able to play or locate their recording because of certain aviation laws and security things and whatever. The pilot is quoted as having said, quote, we have a bunch of basketball players fighting, according to the local news in Birmingham. Now, other reports spitballed players. I like to speak only on players that I've got confirmed from multiple sources. Sounds like Chad Baker and Dylan Cardwell, Chad Baker-Mazara and Dylan Cardwell were two of the people involved in whatever this is. The level and degree of violence of the fight, I think, is up for debate. I think some people that talk to Auburn athletics, people that have high-ranking positions in media, have called it things like a tussle or horseplay or whatever other old-timey kind of, this is what your grandfather used to call when you played too hard in the yard kind of thing. I don't mean to say that it wasn't like anything more than like a normal fisticuffs fight, but I would stress, and I would stress that I don't think a normal just like shoving around one another like horse playing would lead to a pilot trying to get an emergency landing in Montgomery. That's not reporting. That's my intuition reading between lines here. But that doesn't sound good. This is a team Houston's got to play in a marquee matchup on Saturday night. If you're just paying attention, just kind of into basketball, you realize it's a bye week with football. There's nothing to watch. Houston and Auburn are 1 and 2 respectively in KenPom, looking at analytical data across college basketball, getting ready for this, right? Like these are two of the best teams in America. Scheduled to play at 8:30 p.m. Great time, national TV in the Toyota Center, etc. And one of the teams has yet to get to the city the game's being played in because they fought on a plane. This is truly some TMZ level crap. This is like what is going on in the world of college athletics with this, right? Now, I could take my guesses into like, hey, this is either over playing cards with different rules between one another, or somebody talking to somebody's girl, or more than talking, or whatever the case may be, right? And those might be where if I were fishing, I can't get any confirmation or anything like that. But like, I can't think of what could happen less than an hour into a flight where two guys would come to blows like this. And both guys are fifth-year seniors. Chad Baker-Mazara and Dylan Cardwell, both fifth-year seniors. Dylan Cardwell has been there his entire college career. Chad Baker-Mazara just got there. This is his third school along the transfer portal kind of route. They both started the last game. They went like 10 or 11 deep against Vermont, and they won by 50. So I don't know if they necessarily needed those two guys to start that game, but they both started. Chad Baker-Mazara is a good shooter, like over 40% from three in his career, with between 5 and 7 attempts on a given year. Dylan Cardwell is just kind of a big body, big guy. In the 19 minutes he played against Vermont, for instance, he only took one shot, right? But I don't think that they are like completely new to each other. They don't know each other as far as like getting into a fight goes. It's not like it's just two personalities that would never match. They've known each other for a while now. I don't know what you guys do on flights. I typically sleep. That should have been the question of the day. I typically try to sleep if I can. If I've got my 17-month-old, it's really hard to sleep, and I dread those. But if I can sleep, I like to sleep. I look at this though, and first of all, I'd point out to an Auburn fan listening to this flight is a lot shorter than that flight you have to Maui later this year. You might want to pack the melatonin for the guys in that one. Like, call it a night. Call it a night early. Don't let them talk to one another. As far as the basketball game goes, and I think there's I want to talk about this for Houston, because this is a Locked On Cougs podcast. It's not a Locked On Crap on an Auburn podcast, although that is fun and all. This is a Locked On Houston podcast, Locked On Cougs podcast. All right, now a quick pause in the action, because can you imagine if like you were trying to hire someone for a job and something like getting in a fight with coworkers on an airplane to a major work event was like not listed in a reference anywhere? You got to make sure you're checking out for the best people for your small business. I can't believe there are still people not using LinkedIn Jobs to do that. LinkedIn Jobs is not just some other job board, whether you're trying to hire professionals for your small business, big business, or basketball staff. You got to replace someone because they got in a fight in the airplane. Whatever the case may be, LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you cannot find anywhere else, even those who are not actively looking for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, look in the wrong places. Post job free at LinkedIn Jobs. Post job for free at LinkedIn. I'm just so baffled that people don't use this place. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. Post job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. This is a Locked On Houston podcast, Locked On Cougs podcast. And I think this kind of impacts the game for Houston in one of two ways. The first way this impacts the game is that this sinks Auburn. It's just too close together. Auburn and Bruce Pearl hear the noise all 24 hours till the game, more than that till the game, right? This glorified road game. It's in Toyota Center. It's technically a neutral site game, but it's a few miles from Third Ward, against one of the best teams in America, with that much noise, with whatever punishments happened to these kids that were potentially tussling on the plane or whatever. And I think there were more than just two, but those two names are the ones we get confirmed through other sources, right? People get punished, and that's hard, changes your rotations and a lot of distractions. This could sink the team. This could sink Auburn and make this not as fun a game for you and I, and maybe a much easier game for the Cougs. The other option here, though, and the one that worries me, is they wake up in the morning on Saturday morning, dole out their punishments. Let's say they leave, the guys they're going to leave in Auburn, and that's part of their punishments. They miss the game, right? They fly up, and on the whole flight over, you just got a team getting angry and boiling and fuming and like just getting more and more pissed. And then they show up to Toyota Center, and the focus sharpens with the removal of whoever got taken away or whatever suspensions or whatever discipline or whatever. The actual game becomes a weird combination of both an escape and an outlet. And with a guy like Janai Broom, I worry about like what that does. And I think that's what Houston's got to be prepared for. It's like, hey, we might not know who is coming on the second attempt to fly to Houston and who gets left behind, but I think they're going to be ready to cut through the noise and get to playing. And I know Samson Company will have them ready for that. I don't mean to say that they won't. I just think that it's probably somewhere in the middle, but I would hedge Bruce Pearl as closer, like if on a spectrum of sorts, closer to they're cutting through the noise and playing with the focus side of things. This definitely will have an impact on the mental side of the game. I imagine, with Bruce Pearl having a very veteran group, they hadn't played together a whole lot, but a very veteran group, I imagine that this kind of thing that can bring a team together once you make the necessary punishments or whatever. But I also realistically can see, these are college age kids, and college age kids can very quickly be like, what, you're on so-and-so side, and what, you're on such and such, and not like things can continue to grow and fester. So Houston's got to come up prepared for the absolute best punch whoever shows up from Auburn can bring. And frankly, while it's fun to clown on these folks, if Auburn shows up and really brings the Ray game and those kind of things, you don't want to become the other end of the Miracle on Ice kind of story because they showed up with 6 guys that weren't suspended or whatever the case may be. I also think that truthfully, if let's say one of the guys kicked off the team, I don't want to name a guy. Let's say a guy gets kicked off the team, right? And Auburn shows up to play. And they win. They knock off the number 4 team in the AP poll, number 1 team in KenPom. Suddenly, that weekend becomes like the start of a special story. Houston, avoid being the start of that special story. Be relentless. Be focused. Don't let this make the game seem sillier or easier than it is. Well, I will joke about this on social media. My role in this is talking into a microphone with my computer at night. Don't let that happen to you. I can joke about this because, frankly, I'm just going to sit here and talk about the game each and every day, as I do all the time. Players can't, and I think that Samson's got them ready. I'm confident in that. But we'll be talking about it tonight live after the game. Locked On Cougs on YouTube. Audio should be up shortly thereafter. So make sure you hit the button to subscribe. Hit the bell so you know when we're live on the YouTube channel. You can subscribe on whatever audio platform you're listening to. Get it downloaded as soon as the things go live there. Locked On Cougs, primarily the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs. Fly safe.